Hello, everyone, and welcome back to All Things Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. I'm Mr. Jason Roscom. With me here, once again, via satellite, the Darth Vader to my Palpatine, Dave Martin. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Jason.
How are you?
Oh, I'm just peachy.
Are you?
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that.
All right, fair enough. So, the All Things Star Wars podcast is brought to you by El Yucateco Hot Sauce. Dave, what do we got to say about El Yucateco this week?
That was the worst lead in. Like, what you should have started with, like, the letter of the day is El Yucateco.
Letter of the day?
Yeah, I don't know. You made it sound like it was like a Sesame Street thing. But hey, we're talking about El Yucateco hot sauce. It's the #1 habanero sauce in the U.S. and ranks in the top 10 of all hot sauces in the U.S. For emphasis. Sauces are made from the whole fruit of the pepper. They are non-vinegar based, and we do not use the capsaicin extract. And I say we because it's the proverbial we. We are all part of the El Yucateco family now.
The royal we.
The royal, exactly. We focus on talking about flavor. It should say we focus on flavor, not heat. The bottom line is flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Flavor. We are the king of...
And I can attest to that too, by the way.
# king of flavor. Currently, El Yucateco has 5 habanero-based sauces: red, green, Caribbean, Black Label, Reserve, and triple extra hot cut bilk. Do we figure out how to pronounce that yet?
No idea.
Cut bilk.
I'll just go with whatever you say.
How about we're going to go hot cut bilk.
You are the most seasoned between the two of us, so
because it sounds like almost like what we're going to talk about today is something out of the Yuzhan Vong, a little cut bilk. We also have jalapeno hot sauce and chipotle hot sauce and dogs barking. Dogs. Go to elucateco.com or shop elucateco.com if you're looking to buy some hot sauce. Jason has some hot sauce at the house. I have been on complete lockdown, so I have not been able to get out and shop. But you can go online, shop elucateco.com.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
Not the first time I've talked about Flavor Flav today. Very strange coincidence, yeah. So Kristen and I were talking earlier. Do you remember that reality show that came out in the early 2000s called The Surreal Life, where they got a lot of like D-list celebrities and stuck them all in a house and all that?
Oh,
and Flavor Flav, I think, was on the first season of that, or maybe the second. And the only thing he did the whole season was walk around going, Flavor Flav. That's all he did.
The dude was all about self-promotion.
I know.
If you think about wearing a clock around your neck, like it's Flavor Flav.
Yeah. He's the only one known for that. So, all right, yes, go hit up El Yucateco everywhere on social media and try it because it's good fucking hot sauce. I can attest to that. Still putting it in my eggs, putting it on some tacos. We had some pork tacos the other night. Put a little bit on my pork tacos. Again, the chili habanero is what I've been eating right now, but we do have some of the XXX black. How you doing?
Hot cut billick.
Yes. That stuff is good too, but it feels like it's just there for the spice. But either way, all their sauces are good. Check them out and you will do it.
Flavor.
Indeed. And want to give a huge shout out to all of our patrons out there. Tony Ferrari, Camille Donovan, Nick Jackson, Frederick Martin, Big Lovin', Scott Rasmussen, Tactical Swede, Don Solsky, Shotgun Mark, Avery Morgan, Luna Girl and Dragon Buddy, and Vickers. Thank you, everybody, so much for your support. You are the reason why we've been doing this. And hopefully you stick around as we transition to the next iteration of the Dave and Jason podcast.
It's a Dave and Jason show.
Yes, that's pretty much all it's ever been. We just had a Star Wars background, and now we're just going to change backgrounds. That's all.
Right.
Which is a great segue into the first thing I wanted to talk about today.
Like you planned it that way.
Yeah, almost. It's weird how that works. So we are professionals around here. Had a few questions, some people kind of responding to the announcement last week. We got a lot of positive feedback, and I want to thank everybody for that. Some people who kind of seemed a little on the fence, and some people who had some questions. So as far as when this transition is going to take place, we don't have an official date yet. COVID has kind of fucked certain plans up, and we'll expand upon that as we get into throughout the show. But
Uh-huh.
the initial plan was first week of August. That may or may not happen depending on how things go. We have a lot of planning we have to do, and there's some things that we want to finish up here on All Things Star Wars, where somebody mentioned in the Facebook group about the whole Republic Commando, that it was like our job now to just make sure that Republic Commando doesn't get done, despite the fact that people have been asking about it. I honestly do want to do that still. I do want to talk Republic Commando before we end this season of the Dave and Jason podcast. So that's one of the last things I would like to get to. So, so the Bronco Fets and everybody else get to hear our thoughts, because again, I've never read the thing. So, and I hear it's brilliant. I hear it's an amazing book. Or a book series. There's more than one.
I think is there 5 books in that series?
I thought there were 3, but we'd only do one for the show.
Yeah, anyway. I feel like it's an odd number. Although 3 is an odd number. I mean,
it is an odd number. Yeah, I learned that back in like first grade. But anyway.
Well, advanced out there in California.
Yeah. I believe it was Shotgun Mark had asked about the episode numbers, whether or not we would continue with the episode numbers or if we would start fresh. I think we're just going to start fresh, because I think it's going to be a whole separate podcast feed. Because something else that I've been thinking about doing is migrating All Things Star Wars to a free hosting service, because we've been paying for hosting up to this point. But there are a couple of good free services that have popped up over the last year or so. One of the ones that we've talked about is like Anchor, and I want to migrate over to that. So this way we can keep the show alive. You can go back and re-listen to any of our old episodes, and that will leave us open to where if, one day down the road, Dave and Jason decide, hey, fucking season 2 of Mandalorian came out, we'd love to talk about this. Let's fire up the old All Things Star Wars feed and throw up a couple of new shows.
I like that. And we know that our friends at the Use and Abuse podcast use Anchor, and I'm pretty sure that the guys at the Escape Pod also use Anchor. So there are some eligible ones out there. I do like the idea of being able to send people back to this show, and for us to jump into it, like when breaking news hits, and like you said, especially the Mandalorian season 2, which by the by, Nick had sent me a Tactical Swede, Big Swede's Excellent Adventures, whatever. He's in a little battle with the Pop in a Box company.
Oh, really?
Referring to the Sacred Jedi Pops.
The Sacred Pops.
So, which you can't see right now, the way Jason's camera is positioned, but it was just a shame. I might. I'll do it later.
This is what happens when you quarantine. Things change. Things are different. They're not.
Yeah. There's a pop in the background now. So, what was I saying? Oh, they sent him a couple of, he had pre-ordered some Mandalorian pops, and they showed up, and the fucking boxes were damaged because they're not putting like adequate protection inside the box. So he's fighting with them, and they're doing this whole fucking rigmarole about it. So beware if you're going to buy pops from Pop in a Box. Like, do so with the expectation that the box is going to come crunched on the edge. In
the chat, Kathleen Martin says, "Fuck the pops." So
yeah,
she is not fond of pops, apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of a point of contention. And, so we won't be boycotting pops. I'm just saying that.
Right.
Big Swede is having an issue with his pops, but that got spurred on with the Mandalorian. One of the characters from the Bill Burr episode of the Mandalorian, I call the Bill Burr and Ugly Squealic episode. One of the guy who was driving, what's the name of the Mando ship? Fuck, Razor.
Oh shit,
Razor something. Anyway,
yeah, fuck, I've already forgotten.
Yes, we have to watch the Mandalorian again.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah. I am not one of those people who's really good at rewatching stuff, but the fact that we can't remember even the name of the ship right now means that we need to rewatch the Mandalorian before season 2.
Speaking of rewatching stuff, they just announced within the last few days that Solo is now on Disney Plus. So they had some deal with Netflix. I know when Disney Plus first started, we didn't have Rogue One, I think. We didn't have Solo. We didn't even have The Last Jedi. And because they had this deal with Netflix where all of these movies were on Netflix for a while, but obviously Disney's like, hey, we're going to do our own thing. Netflix is like, whoa, we signed a contract. We got rights to all this shit. Well, now finally the last Star Wars movie is on Disney Plus because Solo hadn't been on it up to this point. So now it's there. So if you're a loyal Disney Plus subscriber, especially if you're there for the Star Wars content, every theatrically released movie is on there now. So enjoy.
And honestly, Solo is probably one of those that I hear so many good things about people who rewatch it. It's kind of like between that and with Rogue One,
right?
AKA movies that I probably haven't given a fair enough shot.
Mm-hmm.
Solo, honestly, we thought was not that bad of a movie. But
right. We didn't like tear it down when it came out. We were just like, yeah, it was decent.
Yeah. Rogue One, on the other hand, I definitely need to expand my Star Wars horizons, but it's been tough to watch anything right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Sitting still long enough and not falling asleep to even I don't know, do anything has been a challenge.
Right. And speaking of Disney Plus and things being on Disney Plus, they just announced this morning that there is a new Star Wars animated series coming to Disney Plus. I know Dave is ecstatic about this, and it is a series based on the Bad Batch, that group of fucked up clones from the first 4 episodes of this last season. We talked about them at length. Dave clearly does not like them, never did. I liked them for the first couple of episodes, but I think that their storyline got a little old as the season progressed. I think it was mostly because we were just kind of like waiting for the big shit to happen. And it was kind of a slow roll. And I think that's why I started to, sour a little bit on the Bad Batch. But I loved them in that first episode.
I was not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to have to be really, really good for me to convert over to follow these guys.
Right.
I think we put something in a note. I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw the on StarWars.com, the official news center, the official news center of Star Wars.
Yep.
So it legitimately comes up there, and I'm like, oh, fuck, you got to be fucking kidding me. So I tagged Jason in it on the post on StarWars.com, and then that's it. I figured, fuck it. I guess we'll talk about it on the show.
Yeah, I had just seen it on Instagram, like right before you tagged me on that thing.
Yeah, you said it takes place immediately after Order 66.
Yeah, so when I first saw the headline, like you, I just kind of assumed it was going to be their adventures throughout the Clone Wars and then maybe culminating in Order 66 and seeing what happened to them after that. But no, this takes place on the heels of Order 66 and then what the fuck they do from there. It talks about how they're trying to find their place in the new galaxy, doing mercenary missions, shit like that. So it's basically what happens to them after the Clone Wars, which is a cool concept because I think if it had taken place during the Clone Wars, more shit during the Clone Wars would have been like, that really no interest. But because it takes place in that time frame that we don't have a whole lot of canon in, honestly, that time frame immediately following the events of Revenge of the Sith, it could be interesting to see what they do with this. And I have a feeling, much like with The Mandalorian, we're going to have an overarching storyline throughout the course of the series. And I'm sure we will get episodes where each week it's a different thing. They find a new fucking bounty or a new task to do and whatnot. But I think there's going to be an overall storyline. There's got to be.
Did they give any indication of like what the animation style is going to be like? Is it going to be?
No, they didn't say, but I would imagine it's going to be identical to this last season of Clone Wars, the season 7 animation, if I had to guess.
And what's also interesting, if we were trying to figure out like why have these episodes, right? When we wanted the good stuff at the end for the Clone Wars season 7, we wanted all this good stuff.
Yeah.
Why would they show us this tripe? Now we know why. Because they obviously had this in production. Mm-hmm. So they needed to introduce the Bad Batch in order to make this next bit happen.
Yep.
So here we go. Now this is, to me, this is Disney creating a self-licking ice cream cone. Like, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of creating content just to here. Let's have episodes in this, or let's have this in the Mandalorian so that we can have a spin-off of this later.
You must not have liked a lot of network TV back in the 80s when they introduced new characters with the intent of spinning them off into new shows.
Network TV in the 80s, we were slaves to whatever they produced because that was all there was.
Yeah, there weren't many options.
We didn't have all of this extra shit that we could look at.
Yeah.
There certainly wasn't a streaming service that we could fucking go beep boop boop and see every fucking Star Wars movie instantaneously.
That is true. Maybe that's a conversation maybe for like a Gen X podcast or something like that. I don't know.
I would think that what the Gen X point of view would be on that would be interesting.
Yeah, talking about the 80s television and the evolution of TV and sitcoms. And
speaking of the 80s, my lovely wife Kathleen brings up in the chat that Empire Strikes Back was in the drive-in.
Yes. In fact, not only that, and I should have put a link in the notes, but it was actually the highest grossing movie over the last week, because there's been this national re-release, but with all the COVID shit going on, very few theaters are even open and doing business. But Empire Strikes Back made, I don't know, a few $100,000 over the weekend, but because there's been so little movie theater activity, it was the top grossing movie of the weekend,
which is fucking spectacular.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was in the drive-in, this fucking quarantine sucks because we couldn't even get out of the house. Legitimately, can't leave the house at all.
But that's the thing, though. Like, going to a drive-in movie theater is probably the safest way to see a fucking movie right now.
It certainly is. It is the safest way.
Yeah,
I'd say. But yeah, that's a whole lot. I'm disappointed that I didn't get to see it in the drive-in.
Right, so it's still not playing, or it's not playing anymore, I guess?
I don't know.
What else can they play right now? Honestly, they might as well, but drive-in movie theaters, another subject for a Gen X podcast that we may or may not be doing in the future. So, speaking of Instagram, I was trying to like build that segue in there with me seeing the Bad Batch announcement over Instagram. This happened actually, I think, before the last time we recorded. But Gina Carano plays Cara Dune in The Mandalorian, who I am super sweet on. Right. I think she's one of the hottest women walking the planet right now, quite frankly.
Who isn't? I mean, honestly.
Yeah. So she's pretty active on Instagram. And maybe a week and a half ago, she actually posted a nude picture of herself on Instagram. Now, it wasn't just like some blatant, obligatory like tit shot or anything like that. It was sort of an artsy thing. Like if you look at Dave, see how he's got the window and the light coming through the window behind him? It was kind of like that. And all you really saw was the silhouette of her upper body because she was in front of a window. The light was shining in. You couldn't really see any details. It was just like the silhouette of her body. Very, very artsy, very tasteful. And Instagram fucking took it down, and she got pissed. Like, she went off on fucking Instagram. She reposted the fucking picture on Twitter. So follow Gina Carano on Twitter if you want to see the uncensored version of the picture. She's gotten all kinds of fan support and everything. So yeah, good on Gina Carano for first posting a nude picture and then defending it and reading Instagram the riot act.
Well, and then that's the whole thing was like it was about art. It was about freedom of expression, and like for her, and what she's rallying against is the fact that Instagram, like you're supposed to be a methodology to express yourself, and yet here you are censoring this.
Yeah,
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Instagram has specific like rules that say that this is what they can't put on there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so whether it's in the name of art, like one person's art is completely different than another person's, right? And just look at how Instagram is. I mean, some people,
right.
I don't even want to get into details, but you can definitely find some fairly just raunchy shit on Instagram that's just towing that line.
Right.
Almost literally. So, but there are rules, right? Instagram has those rules, and that was their response. So I get it. I do. I don't necessarily agree that particular photo like met that threshold. However, like I said, devil's advocate. Those are the rules,
right? And that's all fine.
Jason, you want to show your ass on Instagram? It's going to get censored. I mean, that's just the way it's going to happen.
Yep. So you're all deprived because of Instagram and their rules. But no, I get it. It's fine. It's whatever, because she has obviously other ways of posting it. Like I said, she immediately reposted it on Twitter and a couple other places. So it's out there. What really struck me about this, though, was some of the other people in the comments. Like some other fucking like famous C type person, female. I can't remember who she was, but she's like criticizing her on there. She's like, "Oh, girl, don't put sex pictures online. You're better than that and all that." I'm like, "What sex pictures? It was a fucking, again, it's like a silhouette of her body. You can't see any detail or anything." And that just got me thinking. I am really fucking pissed off with all these self-righteous fucks online now, because we've talked about it before. The fucking loudest, most obnoxious, most annoying voices are the ones that are speaking the most on social media. And it's gotten bad lately, to the point where now they're looking so deep for shit. I'll give you some examples. Have you been following the whole Naya Rivera thing? She is the actress from Glee who fucking went missing in a lake in California. They just found her body, by the way, a few hours ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
She did end up dying. Some fucking numbnuts on Twitter and Instagram are reaching out to these other people who were on that fucking Glee show, and they're like, "Why haven't you made a statement about this yet? You should be talking about this and everything else." And the media is picking up on this, and they're writing stories about it. Fans critiquing Glee stars for not speaking up about Naya Rivera. Like, who the fuck are these idiots to say what I should or should not be fucking talking about? Maybe I'm just so distraught that I don't really want to make a public statement on fucking Instagram, you fucks. And then, like, we've had the whole all the George Floyd stuff going on for a couple months now, and all the protests and everything going on involved with that. There are people out there who are now following fucking celebrities and criticizing every single one that's not speaking out about this. Yeah. Like, why didn't you say something about George Floyd? Why didn't you put a black fucking square on your profile on Tuesday when all the rest of us did? Now racism isn't going to end because you didn't do the black fucking square on Instagram. And I can't believe these self-centered, attention whore, fucking self-righteous douchebags all over social media that have nothing better to do than to now stalk celebrities and point out when they're not saying something on social media about whatever the fuck you think you care about.
There is an entire, I'm willing to bet that there are probably accounts that are just solely dedicated to getting those for the clickbait. I mean, let's face it, it's all about clickbait, right? All the self-righteousness and everything else it's to draw attention to themselves.
Right.
And hopefully, what they're doing, if everything happens for a reason, and what they're doing is drawing attention to the greater issue. But you have to think that at some point that it just kind of like it lessens the impact. Like when you're saying it just to say it, now it's going to lessen the impact when something really is important, really needs to be said.
It's the old boy who cried wolf.
So I'm going to talk about it in my week, but I'm reading this monster, right? Look at this book. It's Washington by Ron Chernow. Washington, a Life. This thing's 1,000 pages.
God damn.
It's stupid. I'm almost done. Reading about like all the stuff that it's in this biography is all taken out of like actual letters. Like one thing Washington did was like he kept every fucking piece of paper he ever wrote on and kept it for posterity because he was kind of a self-made man that way. Like he knew the value of creating an image. And while he was even a major in even before the Continental Army, he's a major fighting the Indians. Like some of this correspondence and things like that, things that he was using to build himself up.
Yeah, which I mean, all of that shit is like super important now too. I'm sure anything he ever wrote throughout the course of his life has been fucking dissected and analyzed and everything else.
1,000 pages, but I can tell you that between this correspondence and then the shit that people are writing in the papers and the gazettes and everything else, it's the same shit. It is the same. It is human nature to fucking look at somebody like they did this to Washington all the fucking time, where it was like, okay, Washington didn't react. Like Washington and slavery was a big one, right? Because he was really ambiguous about it because he was a slave owner and, all that shit's well documented. But anytime it would come up, like the abolitionist movement or anything else, there would be people that would be like, well, he didn't respond to it this way, so this is why he's so fucking bad.
Right.
And what he would do is he would make a calculated statement about something, like let it actually take enough time to like, okay, let me not react, let me actually have something prepared and then put that out there. And which you could do back when fucking pen to paper was the primary methodology of fucking getting your information out.
Well, I mean, it would probably behoove a lot of people to do that now, but
fucking 100% absolutely right.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. Like before you put anything on social media, you need to let that rest.
Yeah.
And an email, I mean, that could be said for any professional correspondence you're ever going to write. Anything on social media, you have to have the expectation that somebody's going to be looking at it with a critical eye. So make sure whatever it is that you decide you're going to say has meaning. So I bring it up though. It was happening in 1783 or 1789 specifically, like talking about when Washington becomes the first president. And he was like the most popular figure in America. Like, and to this day, I mean, is there a more famous president than George Washington? I reckon not.
I mean, Lincoln is probably the only closest one.
He's up there. But yeah, people are going to say shit because they can. They're offered this medium where they can do it, and they're doing it just to do it. It's a bunch of attention whores, and let's face it, we're right. I mean, we're taking advantage of it, right? We're here, we're broadcasting our wares out there and saying some scandalous shit to fucking about Star Wars, I guess. Yeah. So I don't know. There's an avoidance. I've been off of Facebook. I know you went through a period where you just weren't looking at Facebook. I've been off of Facebook entirely, except for the Cantina, where our loyal fans are. I'm almost non-existent on Facebook.
I'm pretty much the same way. Like I never post on there very often. Yeah, I just don't care about it. Fuck, I've barely posted it to Instagram lately. I used to be quite the Instagram whore, always putting a bunch of shit out there, but I'm barely putting stuff out on there now either. So I'm really losing interest in social media in general because of stupid shit like this.
Yeah, and it is. It's instead of actually being able to see some art, like the whole conversation started with some fucking shadow titties, and now we can't even enjoy shadow titties because somebody's telling us it's wrong.
Yeah, because now, like, not only will they dissect everything you say, now they're going to dissect anything you don't say. So it's like, why? Why would I even fucking expose myself to this at this point?
You shouldn't expose yourself at all.
Depends on the audience. You know? But I digress. So with that, you ready to get into our weeks?
Yeah.
All right. So as we spent pretty much the entire episode last week talking about, I have the coronavirus, still dealing with some lingering issues from that. Mostly it had been kind of a cough and losing my breath after very little physical activity. Still dealing with that, but the fatigue has kind of come back a little bit. I mentioned to you this morning, like, fuck, right after I woke up, I was immediately just fucking like out of energy, and I had to lay back down this morning at like 9 o'clock. I'm just like, I can't fucking do anything. So I'm still dealing with the lingering effects of COVID, and I'm sure this isn't the only time we're going to talk about this. It's still there. I'm pretty sure I'm going to live at this point. It's just still very uncomfortable.
Yeah. We'll knock on wood. We'll knock on wood just in case, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
But it's still there. It's still annoying. Other than that, though, I've been really into the band Lush lately. Now, anybody out there who's like, who? I don't blame you. Lush was like a indie UK band back in the late 80s and early 90s. So I didn't even know who they were until one of their songs came out on Rock Band 2. If you remember the Rock Band games where you played the imaginary guitars and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
They had one song on Rock Band 2 that I immediately gravitated towards. The song was called like Deluxe, which I loved it immediately. And I even went out and I bought it on iTunes. I found the video on fucking YouTube and saved it. Never thought to look at some other songs that this band had done. Don't ask me why, but I had never thought like, oh, I really like this song by this band. Maybe I should look at some more of their stuff. Never did. Till like maybe a month ago, I was watching the video for Deluxe is in my music feed because I've got my YouTube. I listen to more music on YouTube than anything else. And then it had on the side like the rest of their videos. I'm like, oh, let me just click on one of these.
Right.
Click on one, listen to the song. Fuck, I like this song too. Click on another one. Fuck, I like this song too. So now I'm just like doing nothing but digging for content from the band Lush. I'm looking at all of their official music videos, a bunch of their live performances. I found a whole bunch of fucking interviews with them from 120 minutes. Remember that show on MTV back in the day? Came on at like fucking 11, 12 o'clock at night. It was fucking Matt Pinfield, playing a bunch of like indie rock shit or a bunch of heavy metal stuff and doing interviews with bands, like lesser known bands. So yeah, I found a whole bunch of that stuff. So I've really been into them like lately over the past couple of weeks. So that's been something else that I've been really doing. And their song called Desire Lines, probably my favorite song by them. It's a very like slow, sort of a haunting kind of song. It's fucking awesome. So
for somebody that rails on YouTube so much, you actually find a lot of really good reasons for YouTube to exist. I'm just saying.
True. But I mean, yeah, when they're not doing stupid bullshit and banning people for stupid reasons, then yeah, they're great. But so yeah, I've been really into the band Lush. And speaking of music, I mentioned this last week when I had my whole kind of, I don't know, revelation where I need to be doing better shit with my life after almost dying from COVID, or at least almost thinking I was going to die from COVID. And I busted out my fucking keyboard again. I've been playing a lot of piano. I pulled out my old instructional videos that I had, been going through a lot of exercises. I'm seeing a lot of improvement day to day. I'm practicing anywhere from like 30 to 90 minutes a day playing the fucking piano. So I'm having a good time. Played a little piece for Dave before we started. I can play Jingle Bells. So I mean, obviously I'm not getting into that complicated stuff, but it's really fun. I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad I did this. And tell Kathy to set me up with her instructor once my COVID shit is all completely gone away.
Absolutely. No, I'll tell you the one thing, because we had that keyboard and the transitioning from the keyboard to the piano, you gotta exercise those fingers.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure you got to put more pressure on it.
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference. I remember when she was first using the actual piano, it was a lot of doing the exercise. I
mean, my right hand should be good. I just got to work on my left hand now.
Fingers? I mean, what are you using with your fingers?
What? Nothing. So yeah. Oh, and I just started because it uses a lot of complex chords and stuff, but I started learning how to play the theme from Fallout. So on the piano. So like Fallout, especially Fallout 4, the doon, doon, doon. So I'm trying to learn that. But yeah. Love playing the piano.
I'm trying to figure out like where in your brain you have the ability to isolate all this information, because anymore as I've gotten older, like I find that my hard drive capacity is in serious need of a defrag. There's a lot of randomness out there, but you're bringing up fucking MTV shows that I'm just like, after you mentioned them, like, oh yeah, I remember that was a thing, but like the fucking hosts and shit like that, I have no recall memory for any of that shit anymore.
It's only useless information. Like all of my recall information is useless shit like that in the grand scheme of things.
I can't say that any of my fucking recall is any more useful. It's just not that.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway. All right. Well, that's all for my week for the most part. So what about you? What do you have to talk about this week?
So this is fucking, it has been an absolute shit week. Hot garbage week.
And why is that, Dave?
Because I have the COVID.
Yes.
Thanks to my co-host, Mr. Roscom, I have been enjoying the COVID and been enjoying the isolation of this particular room that I'm sitting in now. I have my cot that I sleep in, and I have the bathroom which is there, and this is it. This has been my world for basically for a week. To try and protect the rest of the household from getting this damn thing.
Yeah. So yeah, to give a little bit of a backstory, I started getting symptoms the day after we recorded 2 episodes ago. So I probably transmitted it to Dave right after that, but my symptoms immediately started. His took a few days to get started, but yes.
Yeah,
He
and when we talked about it last week, a
like
lot of it
Wait, I
last
was going to say, like, I suspected that you had it, but
yeah.
because you didn't have a positive test as of last week, we didn't bring it up. But now we know for sure that Dave
Yeah,
also has the COVID.
because I thought I was trying to, I did that roof project and I fucking really overexerted myself and got dehydrated and everything else. So I was trying really, really hard to blame everything else. But the fact of the matter was that my breathing issues were directly related to that. So,
Mhm.
fuck this fucking virus.
Yeah, and based
And
on your symptoms that you were telling me, I knew you had it. I knew you had to fucking have it, but we didn't have the confirmation. So
right, no, unfortunately, we have the confirmation, and uh, so yeah, so it's been fucking great.
mhm.
Uh, and one of those things is we can't, as Jason coughs off mic, we can't until we're asymptomatic for so long. I mean, we have to stay like this. We have
Yeah.
to, excuse me, we have to stay in isolation. Um,
I was watching a YouTube video of some woman that has or had COVID. She was testing positive 22 days after her symptoms started. She was still getting positive tests back.
wow, I didn't even think about going and getting another test. They haven't brought that up.
Yeah.
So because there's antibodies, I don't know. It's a whole thing. I don't want to make this a COVID podcast. Fucking hell.
I
This
mean, it's the biggest thing going on in the world right now. So
yeah, and it's making a huge resurgence. And unfortunately, it's happening right here in our little world.
yeah,
So
rip Florida.
yeah. So the COVID, based on this week. So if you do follow me on Facebook, you saw that our oldest pup Jessie, uh, she passed away this week, and one of the fallouts of COVID was the fact that the hospitals, the vets, they're not letting people in. I mean, they're coming out, getting the animal. Like when we had taken her to the vet about a month ago or so, like they came out to the car, they got her, they brought her in and brought her back out. It's like there's no like contact in the office and all that stuff. So I had gotten my positive test back, and Kathleen had to take Jessie to the vet, and like they where she was put down, and couldn't be there for any of it. So there's like, it's really super selfish to even think about something like that because it's happening like to us, but that's happening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like something so traumatic, and people that love their dogs, they love it's part of their family, dogs and cats and whatever. And to have to go through that where you can't, it's because of the virus, you almost can't mourn properly, and you go through the situation. So it's like, it's just one of those things where like having the virus has been shitty. The breathing issues, I did not have it as bad as Jason had it. Stop messing with your mic. I can hear it.
It's all right.
I haven't had it nearly as bad as Jason had it. Restricted breathing. I've had a cough. Very, very lethargic. Lethargic. Like today was like you had a kind of recession or regression today with your fatigue. Like whereas I actually had some energy this morning right up until like an hour before the podcast where I ended up taking a 45-minute nap. So like reading this book and getting through this, that's like keeping it on a desk here, staring at it and flipping pages. That's about all I've had the energy to do. Playing video games has been almost non-existent.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that last week.
There's just no energy to do anything. So I already mentioned how I'm reading Washington as part of my quarantine. How you doing? And reading the Department of Defense Inspector General's report on the KC 767 fucking shenanigans back in 2003. Because
I bet that's an interesting read, honestly.
Dude, the fucking, oh my god, unbelievable shenanigans! Like the shit they make movies about.
Right.
This at the end of the day, this whole thing with the new fucking tanker you could make movies about it. The leasing thing, the fucking broad who basically got left the Air Force as a federally retired and then walked into a job at Boeing for $250,000 a year with a $50,000 signing bonus because she directly gave Boeing information about the fucking tanker and about the competition. Like just horrific shit. Now, the good news with that is like she got fucking arrested and she spent time in jail, but yeah, it's a whole sorted thing, but that's been like been reading shit like that and trying to puke that back out into a paper that's, needs to be 30 pages and needs to fucking be done in, I don't know, 2 weeks. So yeah, it's been a fucking shit show. I'm tired of these four walls. I'm fortunate where I have access to so much stimulation. I wish I had more energy to actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
And thankfully it's been nice out. So I've been able to go and sit outside for a little bit and, get some fresh air.
You do have that new Florida room that you just did a nice renovation on and everything else. So new roof and
we had some real hellacious rain. I found it started to fucking leak in a spot. Oh my God.
From the roof?
Yeah. So fucking pissed. And now it has something to do with the gutter that's above it, but I'm like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Like, if the week can't get any worse, then that fucking roof had to leak a little bit too. So
that sucks.
Anyway, we lost Ivo G. He went to bed. He didn't even make it through your week.
Right.
He goes to bed earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
Out there in Bulgaria. Did I have anything else? No, that's it. I'm good. Fuck COVID. All right, Jason.
Topic or?
Oh, now see, you faded in. Now you're fading back. Say something.
What, my audio?
Yep. Shh. Yeah.
How about now?
Better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I wonder if we're actually getting a manifestation of this gremlin that lives in your fucking audio. Like it's actually happening live right now.
That's fucking weird. But you can hear me now, right?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Jesus. Whatever. At least you caught it. So I guess that's one of the benefits of doing remote recording, right? You can hear whenever my audio starts to go out.
Yeah.
As opposed to us in the studio and everybody else in the chat. It's like, hey, can't hear him.
Yeah, completely oblivious unless we're looking at the chat. And
yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Which apologies for not interacting with the chat. I can't have StreamYard and YouTube open at the same time because then it's a picture of me and then another picture of me and everything that's happening now isn't happening now. So it's like, just can't do it. Can't fucking.
All right. So we're ready to get into Vector Prime?
Yes. Big Swede's Excellent Adventure just bumped into the chat. At least your basement didn't flood. You are right, sir. At least my basement didn't flood. He's had fun with his house as well.
That appears to be common in a lot of houses in New Jersey. Thankfully, we bought a house that doesn't have a basement, but
he's in PA and he's in like a hill area. Let's face it, this area wasn't meant for basements. It just wasn't.
No.
The water table is so close to the fucking surface, and I'm in what is my basement, right? It's subfloor. Like that window is basically at ground level. Right. So I'm set in a sub area. And one of the reasons that the Florida room is so important is because it keeps water from coming in the fucking back door.
Yeah.
When it's not fucking leaking. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because where I came from in Southern California, never saw rain in the summers. I think a rainstorm in the summer was about as rare as a goddamn unicorn. And
isn't California in like a constant state of drought though?
Oh yeah.
Don't you have to get the water for the entire state? Doesn't it have to come from like the Pacific Northwest and like trickle down in these fucking man-made canyons that fucking come down, and that's like your entire water source is dependent on like it coming from Oregon?
Probably that or the mountains. Like, thankfully, there have been a lot of snowy winters in the high mountains in California, and that sort of feeds a lot of the water. But yeah, there have been states where it's been in just like the most terrible drought you could imagine.
Yeah, fuck California. I'm not. Yeah. That's odd.
But anyway, what I was going to say was I was not used to the constant thunderstorms and rainstorms during the summer here in the Northeast for the longest time. It's like, what the fuck is this? And it's like every goddamn day, thunderstorms blowing through.
Yeah. It's like being in Florida. That's like Florida summers are the same. Like at summertime, you're going to have a pop-up rainstorm. It comes and it goes.
Yep. But we'll never have a fucking drought out here. So
that's not true. We've had droughts here
in Jersey.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. There's not California level droughts. I mean,
right.
Let's not get it twisted here, but there's definitely been droughts in this area where where you're not allowed to water your grass, you're not allowed to fill pools and do shit like that. We've definitely been there in this area.
Damn. Okay. I must not have been paying attention or something. Vector Prime.
Yeah.
So
Star Wars.
We are continuing.
Wait. Hang on. What? Ready? Summer of Legends.
Yes, we are continuing the Summer of Legends. Getting into Vector Prime. This was when the Legends material, when shit got real, right? Because we had a couple of book trilogies leading up to this. We had the Thrawn trilogy, the Jedi Academy trilogy. We had the Corellian trilogy. The thing with those, though, was those were all sort of side adventures, where in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot changed from trilogy to trilogy or whatever. It was still just our heroes going off on new adventures, nobody fucking dying, no catastrophic effects throughout the rest of the galaxy, anything like that.
Right.
Everything changed with the new Jedi Order series, starting with this first book, Vector Prime. Holy shit, the fucking Vong storyline was a drastic shift from what they had been doing up to that point.
And honestly, we've been alluding to this like throughout the entirety of the podcast, right? 156 episodes have led into this, the springboard for what has probably been some of the best Star Wars content to ever be produced. I mean, I'll go out on a limb, and this book is one of those where it starts with the cover art. I mean, show the cover art to the studio audience, and you get this image of the Vong and just how fucking disgusting they are. Yep. Like just the way that the picture doesn't even do it justice to what they're describing. With taking on and off the fucking what are they called? The ellipses that fucking make them look more human, and the tattooing and everything else, and just like you get this image of just awful, just evil, awful things that There's probably nothing in Star Wars that you could say like the Sarlacc pit is probably the closest thing where it's been like something that's just flat, just the pussy in the middle of the desert. The Vong are so far above what anything that we've encountered in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and they kind of had to be, because this is the first of 22 books. This was a 22 fucking book series that told the story of this Vong War that goes over the course of what I think like a decade, right? Is how long the fucking invasion lasts. I should have looked that up before we started. But well, and
at least.
Yeah. And one thing that I think we need to do maybe for next episode is recap the rest of the new Jedi Order series. Maybe just kind of go through what happened for the rest of the time. But for this week, we're focusing strictly on Vector Prime because so much happens in that.
We can absolutely do that.
Yeah. All right. You were freezing for a second there, so I had to make sure you were back. So
sidebar, I figure out why it freezes, right? Because the machine that I'm running, if I try and run stuff at the same time, this happens in the studio, but because we're not broadcasting from my machine, like not really, like the way that the stuff runs, we don't really see this. And we don't get the lagging. So I got to be really careful what I'm going to do off to the side. Because
if you're running like multiple apps and shit on your on that computer. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, Vector Prime came out in October of 1999, which I think
My
we've
daughter
gotten
was
into
4 days old. My daughter was 4 days old when this hit the fucking press.
wow, that's fucking crazy. And I was in the process of ending my first tour in the Air Force. I was I ended my first tour in January of 2000. So by October, at this point, I'm already making plans. I'm already setting up the movers. I was in a completely distracted state when this came out. I knew it had come out. I even bought it when it first came out, but I actually didn't get a chance to fully read this until I believe it wasn't until well into the next year, well into 2000 at some point. Where I know it took you even longer, but
Yeah, there was, like you said, major life events were happening in 1999, right?
yeah.
I started I had been in the military, but I started my active duty career the day my daughter was born. Like
Oh shit.
the irony is that like when I started my active guard career with the unit that I ultimately retired out of, that was day one. Like I missed my first day at work because my daughter was being born. So it was like it'll always have that kind of know exactly how old my daughter is and know exactly how long I was in the unit because it was that day. That was the first day. And then obviously with ops tempo being what it is and everything else, like 9/11 and all those other things, I didn't pick this book up until, I mean, it was in paperback. So it was I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
That penguin is that penguins drown along with the ones that have fucking MTV 120-minute episode.
Yeah. So, but yeah, October of 99. And like we said, this set the stage for the rest of this invasion. And it started off by introducing us to a couple of characters, a couple of Yuuzhan Vong, who I want to get into some more detail about that fucking race in a minute. But it introduced us to Nam Anor, who is the leader of this planet Ramamul, which all kinds of weird just things that don't really flow off the tongue. And then you've also got Yamin Kar, who is part of the Exgal station on the planet Belkaden. That's where the story kind of starts, is with these two Vong agents who have infiltrated the Republic or aspects of our galaxy and are already starting to plant the seeds and starting to wreak havoc. And you really get that with the Ramamul conflict.
Right. Well, he's basically the, oh fuck, I can't think of the name. Like,
they called him a prefect is what they called him, as far as like.
So he was basically the person that was establishing, okay, this is going to be our battle rhythm once the Vong show up. So his role, not only in ultimately bringing down these two planets whose names I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, Ramamul and whatever the other planet was that they were in like close orbit to each other.
Right. Which is going to have huge implications later for our band of characters.
Because of the implication.
That's from something. And I can't think of that either. All right. So I would rather talk about him because that's like he's you can tell he's an antagonist in this whole thing.
Sure.
What's more is at the Exgal station, the agent that's there basically is sitting there. I imagine, so I have this vision in my head of like Independence Day. You know, at Independence Day when they're in the SETI station and the fucking got the dude who's putting.
Yeah, they're playing golf on the floor because nothing ever goes off. You know,
it's in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden, like the pings start happening from a certain area, and he fucking comes rushing over. Right. Yeah. That's this dude. That's all he did was sit there waiting to hear when these fuckers show up. Yeah. I mean, that's not all that he was doing. Obviously, he was doing other things too. But like, I immediately had this vision of just like people sitting in this station, just like, like, oh, we're waiting to hear something. Oh, was that something? Yeah. Nah, that wasn't anything. Don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, he'd infiltrated this team. They were just doing research or whatnot out there, where he was out there at that post specifically waiting for the Vong, because this was on the planet Belkaden, which was on the far edge of the galaxy. Like, think around the outer rim, right at the tip of the...
We have the ability.
All right, but the audio, this is going to be lost on the audio audience.
But here's the thing. Like, so if you're following along with us, and you're listening to this, get a copy of these books, because one of the best things about these books is we've talked about the timeline. The timeline's all right there in front of you, and it has astral maps of like the galaxy.
Yeah.
And so it gives you an ability to actually visualize where these places are when it comes to where it is in the galaxy. And that's fucking, it's such a nice touch. Such a nice touch for these books, because sometimes you need to figure out, like, okay, they're going from here to here to here. Where the fuck are these places? You know, you can't conceptualize it. And then you have a picture.
Yeah. Now, and of course, this is all again setting the stage for this Yuuzhan Vong invasion. They're coming in from this spot because they are not from this galaxy. And this is, as I've gotten more and more into astronomy, this is making more and more sense to me now. Like going back and rereading this, I'm like, oh, fuck, okay. Because the concept of galaxies and the universe and all of that stuff never really... I wasn't really that interested in like the physical layouts, but now that I've done some research and now that I know that there's like a fucking 100 million galaxies out there in the fucking known universe, and thinking about the size of a single galaxy, and then knowing that there's, you know, thousands, if not millions more galaxies in addition to that, is fucking mind blowing, but especially in terms of the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah.
So we know
because we're very specific in our verbiage, right? It's the galaxy, and a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It gives you this illusion that all of these things that are happening in the same spinning disk of a galaxy.
Yeah.
And what was groundbreaking with this series and bringing the Vong into it was like, we're going to introduce this element completely outside of that, because even Thrawn is from the like outer reaches.
The unknown regions, but it's still part of the galaxy.
Right. It's still part of that same fucking elliptical spinning disk.
It's just in some of the more uncharted areas, but it's still the same galaxy. Whereas the Vong come from a completely separate galaxy, and that's what's so fucking awesome about the concept. Because you have to think they kind of had to be, right? Because in order to be sort of a folly for the Jedi, you had to be somebody else who was completely outside of the Force. Which you think of the Force, you think it's probably something maintained within this galaxy. That's something unique to this galaxy, is the Force, and that the physical manifestation and everything. Just kind of thinking existentially here, but you know, you've got to have this other species that's coming from a completely separate fucking galaxy that nobody has seen, nobody knows of. And the thing I was going to mention was the fact that the reason why they came through this spot in Belkaden was, I guess there's an energy field protecting the galaxy, that it's impenetrable. Like anybody from the outside can't just like mosey right into our galaxy and be like, hey, what's up? I'm here. You have to get through this one like weak spot, I guess, in the fucking energy field that surrounds the fucking galaxy. So that's why they set this guy up at Belkaden. That's why that was the Vector Prime, the initial invasion point for this Vong invasion.
And you can imagine too that timing had to be everything with that, right? It had to, all right, we have to put an agent in place, like we have to get him in there somehow, and then picture the actual entry point was like on a record that's spinning ever so slowly, so that they can just marry up exactly when the invasion force can come in. And while this is Vector Prime, we know that as we get into later books that this invasion force that showed up wasn't the only ones.
Right.
Like
because they did some recon decades before. And you got to think it's going to take, you know, lots of planning to do something on this scale.
Yeah. And while these aren't even really humanoids, I mean, they're bipedal, but we have no idea conceptually like how old they really are. Yeah,
because I think they never really got too deep into their history, even in later books.
And they're so into self-mutilation and like it's and dying for them, and the glory of death is like everything for them. So like, you could imagine that they probably don't live that long, or they don't want to anyway. It's like a Meeseeks. It's like hitting that ugly ass Meeseeks box, a Kirtland brand Meeseeks. Bing. What do you want?
And that's the other thing too, that it's their, like, not only their reliance, but their dedication to only being powered by organisms or organics. Like everything is a living, breathing organism that they use, from their fucking weapons to their fucking ships to their communicators. Everything that they use is some sort of genetically modified organism. It's
Hmm.
and they don't use anything synthetic, and they despise the synthetic. You get a hint of that in the Ramamul conflict, where they have their fucking, their theater of fucking pain or whatever, where they like slaughter all the droids and
Yeah,
everything.
they're basically hitting droids with big rocks.
Right.
Like pile all the droids into one spot and then fucking throw boulders at it. And
Right. Because
this is the sacrifice to this dude.
yeah, because that's what Na Manor was fostering, was that hatred towards anything like not organic. And
Right.
even though these people had no idea who he really fucking was, he was kind of stirring that shit up.
Yeah.
And he was relishing in the fact that like there were just like thousands of dead droids in this fucking pit or whatever.
And something else too, like as we get through the Vector Prime book, this guy had been around long enough to know who the important Jedi were. Like he knew who Leia was. He knew who he knew the Solos, he knew the Skywalkers, knew their whole story. There's the plot to try and kill Mara Jade was because of this individual and the disease that she carried. So the guy had been there long enough and started enough trouble. And now we're bringing this all in with an entire race of this thing. I just can't even. Ugh.
Yeah, just the description, the way they describe like how grotesque their fucking faces are, and then the way the symbiotes attach to their face to get.
You can hear the noise like as you're reading it. You're like,
yeah,
it's just like oh god, so awful.
Yep.
But really cool stuff is the I forget what the names of these things are so fucking far out there.
Oh yeah,
but like the communicators that would like crawl into the ear and the level to be able to communicate across the fucking galaxy.
Yeah,
like and have no electronics, no nothing, just these two beings communicating through the galaxy. Amazing, just absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder how the fuck you're going to beat that. Like they don't show up in the Force. Like Mara Jade and Leia and everyone that encounters them are like they're blank.
Yeah, it's like a void.
They're not hiding themselves in the Force. They're just not there.
Yeah. And they notice this when Leia goes to Ramamul to try to negotiate some sort of peace with Na Manor. Like she immediately senses that like there is nothing there in the Force with this guy.
Yeah, Mara Jade had encountered this guy in her previous life, had said that just weird feeling, like trying to find this guy in the Force to figure out his motives, and there's nothing.
Speaking of Mara Jade, this was actually the first novelization mention that her and Luke were married, because they got married in like some fucking comic book series that took place before this. But up to this point, Luke and Mara had only been associates. Like she had shown up at the Jedi Academy every once in a while to learn new shit from him. After she stopped wanting to murder him and everything. They like, I think during the Jedi Academy trilogy, they had kind of a more of an understanding. Even more during the Corellian trilogy, but there was never any hints of anything romantic between them. But then all of a sudden at the start of this fucking series, boom, they're married. Right. So a little, to me, I felt at the time when I read it, it was a little disjointed, a little kind of rushed.
I had the benefit of hindsight for this because I started reading this series late. So, right. And I had already read, Fate of the Jedi series and like other ones that are beyond this. So going back to the origin, it didn't seem it just didn't seem that weird to me.
Right. Well,
I could see that all of a sudden,
yeah, it's all of a sudden they're married.
Like, bing.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like, okay. I mean, not that I had anything against that. But yeah, it just seemed to kind of
anything wrong with that.
Right, exactly. So, you mentioned the whole poison. It started off with her having this fucking disease that they mentioned that they had killed some other people. Like I think they had mentioned that they had seen it in some other people and they had died pretty quick, but with her power in the Force, she was keeping it alive, and she was pregnant at this point too, right?
No,
or no, she wasn't pregnant until later.
Not yet.
Okay.
That think they find out she's pregnant in the next book.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I thought they had mentioned like it being in her womb or something, or Leia sensed it in her womb in this book.
No. So what it was is Mara Jade was concerned because this disease had started to attack her womb. So she was like,
okay.
And she was worried that she wasn't going to be able to have kids. And so Leia catches her, and like there's like a moment between the two of them, like, just like where she reveals to Leia like what her concerns are, because she wants to have children.
Yeah.
Welcome to Isaac, who Isaac Sipe jumps into the chat and immediately provides us with much needed information.
Yep.
The coom spores, is what the poison was.
Yep. And yeah, so that was her whole storyline, and that goes throughout this whole fucking Vong invasion. Now, the reason why this is called the New Jedi Order, at least that's the reason it kind of started off as that, is we have fucking Kip Duron, who I like to equate him. He's like Iceman, right? Him and his whole fucking gay crew of pilots are out just doing whatever the fuck they want in the galaxy. They're kind of
for about 5 minutes. If this were a movie, there's this Kip Duron and his fucking 12. There's like 12 of them. They call himself like the 12 plus 5 or some bullshit like that.
Yeah.
And when they're at Lando's fucking what the hell? Another one of Lando's fucking
his schemes.
Yeah, just one of his Ponzi schemes to fucking figure out how to get money out of the Republic.
Yep.
Flying TIE fighters and fucking through asteroids and shit like that. Which actually, that to me was neat.
It's a cool concept.
Putting the solo kids in fucking doing what they can do really well. And it establishes right away too that Jaina is the, like, as far as what piloting skills, like as a 16-year-old, I think she's 16 in this. As a 16-year-old, like, she's obviously far superior than the other solo kids and piloting technique and being able to use the Force and stuff like that.
Yeah, and but yeah, with Kip Duron, they're doing all of their rogue stuff now, and we're led to believe that they've been doing this for a while. Obviously, they get fucking their asses handed to them early on in this book, but we're led to believe that they've been out there like stopping smugglers and just kind of doing a bunch of shit on their own, just like their own version of justice. And that kind of gets Luke thinking like, fuck, do I need to reestablish the Jedi Council? I've got all these fucking rogue Jedi out just doing whatever the fuck they want. We don't really have any established rules or anything else. And, him and Jason they visit the fucking the council or whatever on Coruscant, the Senate,
right,
to kind of discuss this, because they're like, what the fuck, man? Your boys are out there fucking with these smugglers. Not that that's bad. Smugglers are bad. But
because there's a couple of them that are on the take, right? So
exactly.
They're upset that there's Jedi out there doing rogue Jedi things because it affects their pocket. It affects their bottom line.
Exactly.
Just grab this straight out of a headline of any fucking corrupt government anywhere, right?
Yeah. And I mean, God, as we go along, at least in like the first like 7 or 8 books in this fucking series, watching the Republic's response, it's just so like, fuck, what is wrong with you? But it's also very typical. It's like, it's almost like fucking Europe during the fucking 1930s and 40s, where it's like, all right, Hitler, you took that fucking country, but if you stop now, it's okay. You can keep that. Oh, he just took another one. All right, well, stop now. Don't do any more invading. They kind of were like that for a while, where they're like, oh, you're just warmongering. You want us to start this fucking war with these people. They took these couple of planets.
Do you want defense budgets and, increasing the size of the fleet and
So just watching the response of the New Republic in this is just fucking mind blowing. And in my opinion, they kind of got what they deserved, but So, but yeah, and we get this moment where Luke is talking to Jason about, wanting to possibly reestablish the Jedi Council and all this other stuff. And they have very vastly different opinions. And going through it and reading it now, knowing what I know, what happens with these characters down the fucking line, it's very foreboding, very just disturbing, like his opinions on things and how he thinks the Jedi should be.
Yeah, there's consistency in the character throughout the entirety of the thing, all the way up until the point where Jason Solo is ultimately killed.
Yeah.
Is how he views the Force and how he views he should be as a Jedi Knight, how he should be using the Force.
Yeah.
And like they show him fighting with Anakin to like say, Anakin feels like, all right, we're using the Force to make ourselves better fighters so that we can go and fight the bad guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Youthful exuberance, right? And Jason's like, yeah, no, I think at some point you'll see that you're wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Which, does Anakin even live through this series? He doesn't, right?
Not the New Jedi Order. I'm pretty sure he dies towards the end.
I'm pretty sure that's when he takes over the fucking giant blower upper.
Yeah, because he's on that fucking space station.
Yeah.
We'll cover that when we cover the rest of the series. But for now, we're focusing on Vector Prime. And the curtain starts getting peeled back as we get deeper and deeper into this with Naminor's plan and then fucking Yamankar and Exgol. Belkadin, the planet, gets just fucked. Once he senses that the Vong coming in, he's like, all right, got this fucking beetle, and now we're just gonna, transmit the plague planet-wide.
He'd been breeding those beetles I got the impression that as soon as he showed up there, he started breeding these beetles, and that so the timing would be right, so that these beetles would be, by the time the Vong showed up, they would turn into this plague. That you know what it reminds me of? Those Japanese beetles that you see everywhere around here. Like they're super, super invasive Japanese beetles.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'll go out there and fucking skim the pool, and there'll be like 50 of them in there, like overnight. They just for whatever reason, they just want to jump into the pool. Like, sons of bitches. Just a lot more of them.
Right. Yeah, so...
All right, Isaac tells us, nope, he dies in Star by Star.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually in the middle of the fucking series. I don't think that's even halfway through the fucking series. Hold on. Let me see.
Yeah.
See if it's got the fucking timeline here.
It does. Oh, you have the hard copy of that.
Yeah, no, this is the hardcover. The only thing it shows in the timeline for the fucking New Jedi Order is Vector Prime. So This is an original printing of the fucking thing. I got to find one of the other ones. But anyway, yeah, I think Star by Star was only like the 8th book in the series, something like that, out of 22. But again, we digress.
Isaac will tell us here in a minute.
Indeed. So, but yeah, the curtain starts pulling back. Fucking Yamankar reveals himself to the rest of the fucking Exegol crew, especially when he kills the one guy. And they get in and they crash land on this fucking ice planet, which that's where they establish their initial base. Not even an ice. Yeah, it's an ice planet, right? That they crash their ship on. They set up their initial base. All kinds of other shit happens with one of the fucking female scientists gets captured.
Right. Apparently, who's a huge hottie because they make it seem
I thought her and Jason were going to start fucking. Again, later on in the series when he rescues her and everything else. But
no, he rescues her in this book.
Oh, that is in this book.
Yeah,
is that the one where they were
in Vector Prime?
That was the one where they were like fucking captured and they were like in a pod, like kind of like stuck, like face to face with each other. Was that in this one?
They went to the ice planet. They had some cockamamie scheme with one of Lando's things from previous book where how they were on the sail. That planet that was like so close to the sun, they had to have like these giant like movers that had like basically big sunshades on them.
Mm-hmm.
So they took one of those and fucking some Star Wars physics where they basically encapsulated the ice planet so that the energy would start to melt the ice and kill the giant brain. Like, no. All right, so they have the war mind, right? The Vong have this war mind that they fucking basically inserted into the fucking the iceberg planet.
Yeah, which is like their war coordinator.
Right, the war coordinator. Yeah, thank you. But it's basically a giant brain. Like they describe it as a giant fucking brain.
Yeah.
Like it's like something out of a fucking really bad Doctor Who episode. Like, okay, this is like we can be so descriptive about what the Vong are and their fucking the Ipsilari and their fucking communication, everything else, but the war coordinator is a giant brain.
Yep. Yeah. So, but yeah, that all happens, and then we've also got they decide that their next target is the planet Cernpedal. Fucking none of these names really flow off the tongue.
It was like serendipity. What was syrup?
Right.
Serpidol.
Right. And this is kind of where the climax of a good portion of this book happens, because this is what you alluded to, the death of Chewbacca. Right? This is what they were selling this book on. I remember before this book ever came out, word of Chewbacca's death in this book had gotten out, and the people who were in charge at the time, the keepers of the holocron, mentioned that they needed to give us the sense that shit's getting fucking real now with these books. We know these had been just some side adventures in the previous books up to now, but fucking we're getting serious in this series. And right out the gate, they killed a original trilogy character in fucking Chewbacca. And again, using their fucking, this was their Dovin basils, more fucking genetically engineered fucking Vong creatures, that these ones manipulated gravity to the point.
Gravity wells.
Yeah, well, yeah, they create gravity wells, and they would pull a fucking moon from a planet and have it collide with the fucking planet, and that's how they take out some of their enemies. Fucking crazy.
Yeah. Like, why would the did you get the sense? Now, it's been a minute since I think, whenever you finished the book, right? Did you get the sense that the banter between Anakin and Chewbacca and Han, like, was kind of leading up to this? Like, there was an angst, there was like this underlying tension that was happening, and then ultimately, when the big spoiler alert is, Anakin has the opportunity, or at least Han thinks that they could potentially have gone back and gotten Chewbacca. They're trying to rescue all these people off the fucking planet after they realized what was happening, and they couldn't. And ultimately, Anakin had to make a choice to either save the Falcon, save everybody on it, or potentially just die with Chewbacca.
Right. And I think it's obvious he made the right choice, but obviously Han, being as close to Chewbacca as he was, had, again, had that feeling that, they could have gone back and saved him, which is, it's all emotional, right? It's emotional reaction, like, oh, fuck, we could have saved him.
Which is 100% how it should have been. If Chewbacca dies, right? Like when Han Solo dies in Force Awakens, you have Chewbacca is like immediately emotional, but then later on, like with the whole, I'm still fucked up in Force Awakens with fucking Chewbacca walking past Leia and like that whole thing. That shit still fucks me up.
Yeah.
This is how it's supposed to be done. Like how this is written, the emotion of that moment, and with Chewbacca being gone, even though I knew it was coming, I'd still like it struck me as the moment was teed up very, very well. And the reaction to it was appropriate. I dare Disney to do something as bold. With this storyline, I don't think they could. I don't think they could. I don't think they could. They could do it as well. They're too busy making the fucking Bad Batch.
Right. Well,
let's have Rambo and his fucking cast of cronies like run around like.
But that's an interesting dynamic too, because I'm like, this is your son, right? Your son, and you're pissed off at him because your friend died, and he kind of blamed Anakin a little bit for this. Like, not even just like for not going back to get him, but also because Chewie fucking grabbed as like the fucking city and the whole planet is collapsing around them. He grabs fucking Anakin and chucks him back onto the Falcon because he couldn't get up there himself. Right. So, and that was like his last fucking courageous act, was saving Anakin, which ironically, as we talked about already, Anakin doesn't even make it to the end of this fucking series. So,
which, to me, it's a testament of how the rest of this book series is written. The rest of the Legends material is written, honestly, because this moment builds throughout the entirety of it. Han Solo is never the same.
No,
he is never the same after this. Like, and we get other Wookiees. We have other Wookiees that appear, like Lobaka, and then you have I can't think of the other one, but
The Jedi one?
the Jedi one. What the hell's his name? Because he showed up and he was in the one with the hive. They would have had the hive mind.
The Dark Nest.
Dark Nest trilogy. Yeah. What the fuck was that? Anyway, so we get more Wookiees.
Wasn't it
is
like
the
like
point.
it started like with like an M, like Moraka or something like that?
Mirachi, Mirachow, El Yucateco, whatever. Let's just go with it.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Isaac did mention that this is Anakin. We talk about Anakin is saved by Chewbacca. Chewbacca gets killed, and then 9 books later, fucking Anakin eats it. So,
Yeah.
and that's lumpy.
It was not lumpy.
Fuck you. Fuck you for even. Oh man. Anyway, I can't even.
Yeah. So
I can't even.
But at least Chewbacca went out in a fucking blaze of glory, because how do you kill such a beloved character? You drop a fucking moon on him.
Yep.
Basically. Like if they're gonna kill one of these main characters, it's got to be big, and it doesn't get much better than a fucking moon dropping onto a fucking planet that he's on.
Yeah, and they try and kill Han and Chewbacca earlier when Han and Chewbacca are doing the asteroid run at Lando's.
Yeah.
And the fucking the shield generator fucking quits, and now they're like bouncing around these fucking things. They go calm out. And you're like, oh no, this is gonna be it. It's like it's one of those things where like, it's too early in the book. They're not gonna get both of them. B,
yeah,
it's too soon.
Yeah. So, but that's the big part of this is, I mean, in addition to the introduction of the Vong, it's that death of Chewbacca, because like I said, the people who are working on this, they wanted to make that impact right out the gate, because they got 21 other fucking books that they're planning that they, need to generate sales for. And they need to hype up. So
20, like, just imagine, like, the sacred Jedi texts, right?
The sacred texts.
There's 4 5-foot tall piles of books over there, and 22 books is barely a dent in that, if you really think about it.
Yeah,
like how many books that like this is the beginning of not only writing something beyond a trilogy, but writing dozens of books in a series and giving you content and making you wait. We talked about this before. It's making you wait for the next fucking book. It wasn't like, oh, and next month this is going to be out like a comic. No, you're waiting fucking half a year or more.
I mean, they did come out at a pretty regular pace. I think it was probably every 3 to 4 months, because they had multiple writers working all of these, which, oh, by the way, we didn't mention, this book was written by R.A. Salvatore. Now, you may not know who he is, Dave, but he's a very prominent writer. He already had a very big reputation in the fucking nerd realm, because he wrote a bunch of the Forgotten Realms, the D&D based novels. He created the Dark Elf trilogy, which was about this fucking dark elf. Had a whole bunch of books. Very popular character. He wrote.
I've heard of that. Books. I mean, I've played D&D, so I've heard of the character.
Drizzt, I think the guy's name was. But he created that character and wrote those book series. So he already had a huge reputation. So when it was announced that he was writing this first fucking book for Star Wars, like, people lost their shit. Like, people were very excited. And the fact that this was the start of that trend where they had different writers working on books simultaneously, so they could tell this story without having to wait a year or more in between books. You only had to wait like 3 or 4 months in between books. Because, again, 22 books, it's going to take a while to tell that fucking story.
See, but they didn't do that later. Like, in the later series, when you're talking about Fate of the Jedi series, like, you were waiting a long time. Like, because I can remember pre-ordering the hardcovers and having to wait months. Like, and maybe...
Like 3 to 4 months?
Like, probably 6 months. I feel like it was longer. I feel like it might have been...
That's what she said.
I want to say, like, it seemed like they released a book in March and then another one in October. So I mean, you're talking a couple a year, but the anticipation, that's the point I'm trying to make of this whole thing, is the anticipation of, like, the next book.
Yeah.
Like, none of these books were written in a vacuum. Like, you knew that every single one of these had, like, the fucking, what the fuck is going to happen next?
Yeah.
And it had that feeling for the next 40 books.
Yeah, and now we're going to get that comparison when you talk Legends versus canon, because we have the
Summer of Legends.
yes, we have the one storyline coming out in January.
The New Republic.
The High Republic. Yeah,
Republic.
so they're following a similar formula where it's multiple books by different authors coming out telling this one overarching story. So we'll see if they execute it nearly as well as they did, starting with the new Jedi Order, then going into the Fate of the Jedi and everything else. So
I mean, to put a bow on it, because it's almost time for you to have dinner. But
exactly, I'm trying to wrap this up.
With the whole point of Summer of Legends is to talk about something that's so magnificent that I think to get near this storyline is going to be a real fucking challenge.
Yeah.
If that's their goal, if their goal is to be able to write books in the same ilk as they did with these, and be able to have this continuous storyline of dozens of books, then they've got most of the people who are going to read these books are the people that have read these other books. So
Sure.
they have, like, we have
an expectation.
Expectations. Thank you. That's
yes.
what I was trying. We have expectations, and it's going to be really, really difficult to meet them. But the good news is they're writing about shit that there's no fucking canon for. They can't fuck it up, honestly.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, because that it takes place in an era where we don't know any of these characters. We don't know any of the history of any of what's about to be told. So they can kill off anybody. They can do whatever the fuck they want, as long as it doesn't affect, whatever it is, 500 years later or whatnot, in the current Star Wars canon. But yeah, that's Vector Prime in a nutshell. What were your thoughts on rereading it this time around overall?
It got me excited for look, if I had all the time in the world just to be able to sit down and read Star Wars books, I would love to just go and read through the entirety of this thing.
I felt the exact same way.
I don't know why I don't do that. I mean, honestly, I sit down and make time to read something like this. My ADHD is sometimes preventative in that way. Like, or if I'll start on a reading kick and I don't necessarily need to read the same thing over. I need to intake and then push all those penguins off, have all this bullshit knowledge about George Washington's life that's going to occupy this space in my brain where more interesting things could be living.
Sure.
But yeah, that was my feeling. Like, okay, I would love to sit down and read all of these again and get that emotional involvement with these characters again. Yeah,
me too. Good storytelling. Oh man. So not 100% sure what we're doing next week, but we will have something. The Summer of Legends will continue.
Summer of Legends.
Yes. And at some point, Dave and I will sit down and we'll hack out an actual schedule for the release of From a Gen X Point of View. And
that's right.
We'll keep you guys posted. Coming soon to a podcast near you.
That's right. It's going to be great. And while you're anxiously awaiting the Gen X podcast and whatever it is that we're going to do next in the Summer of Legends, buy yourself some El Yutaka hot sauce.
Yep.
Put it on your eggs. Put it on whatever it is that you enjoy having a little bit of spice to, add a little bit of flavor. It's really, really good.
Yep. And while you're eating, also check out podbelly.com and
you should
listen to some podcasts.
There at the podcast like the Escape Pod and
Used and Abused, and then I guess those Sofa King guys and
those fuckers. Listen, it's so hard. It's so hard to
That's
because I was good with the Podbelly thing. Now Yucateco. Fuck, I gotta. Just like Podbelly was initially, I'll start warming to it, and maybe I'll do a shot of El Yucateco before we start the podcast.
I would love to see that.
They'll blunk and do a shot of it, and then just and then shit my pants, and then we'll do the show. It'll be great.
Oh! Speaking of which, I completely forgot to mention last week as I was going through all of my COVID symptoms and everything. I forgot to mention how I shit my pants. One day early on in my
Jason, there are things that we don't need to know, and that between that and the fucking tick last week.
Oh yeah, got a lot of great feedback on that. By the way, got texts from people that I didn't even know listened to the show or anything else because I posted the link to the video on my Facebook page. I got people texting me like crazy, like holy shit, that fucking tick story. People that never listen to the podcast were giving me a lot of feedback on that.
Yeah, and they tuned in for that. So
they did. I warned people. I had a disclaimer on there saying, "Hey, there's some TMI information in here. Listen at your own risk."
And we're finishing with TMI. Jason shitting himself.
Yeah.
This virus is a fucking shit show.
It's the worst. It is the worst. So
I hope that we're making it look easy. Honestly.
Yeah. You're not seeing the worst of it. You're seeing the best of Dave and Jason, and not the virus riddled guys. Right. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Thank you everybody for joining us. We will be back next week with some more Summer of Legends. Until next time, everybody else and Dave, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. Okay, now what do I click?